Hi, welcome to episode 85 of the American Tributaries podcast, where to break out of the bubbles we all live in, we're using modern technology to explore the various currents of people in our great country, kind of like a 21st century Lewis and Clark journey. I'm your host, Michael Whitten, here in Brooklyn, New York, and thank you for joining me in this exploration of America. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Andy Ezard. Is that how you say it?
Ezard, but
Ezard, okay. Ezard,
yeah,
who lives about 860 miles west of me in Jacksonville, Illinois. Andy and I were connected by a mutual friend, Jordy Harold. So, Jordy, thank you for connecting us. And, Andy, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing? And could you share a bit of your story?
doing just fine, Michael, and thanks for having me. And yes, thanks, Jordy. Uh, yeah, he's. We were talking about him off the podcast, and just a neat guy, a good family. Just grew up with him. Kind of followed his progress, and very happy for him, and very happy for us, him putting us together, Michael. So my story. I born and raised in Jacksonville, Illinois. Jacksonville, Illinois is basically in the center of the state of Illinois. It's west central, but about a town about 18,000. Uh, you know, uh, Agriculture community. We're the county seat of Morgan County. We're close. We're 30 miles from the state capital, Springfield, Illinois. About 85 from St. Louis, 200 and some odd to Chicago. Indianapolis is fairly close, another 200. So we're situated just right there in corn country, so to speak. And it's, I'm born and raised here, went through school in Jacksonville, went away to college for 4 years at Eastern Illinois University over in Charleston, which you said we're directly west of you. Charleston is about 90 miles straight east of me, so they're closer to you. But EIU Panthers, and then came back to Jacksonville and worked. Worked in Springfield, Illinois for government. At that time, it was Governor Jim Edgar, who was the governor of the state of Illinois from 1990 to 98. And then I left the governor's office and I worked for the Department of Natural Resources, in events coordination and marketing and things like that for them. And then in 2005, the city clerk's job was calling my name. I always wanted to get more into local government. I saw how state worked for 15 years and I really enjoyed my experience. But it was, born and raised in Jacksonville, living in Jacksonville, and continue to living while working in Springfield. It was something on my heart and mind. Was clerk for 4 years. Had a tough. When you think of small elections, I know you live in Brooklyn, and small elections around here, you're facing a lot of times your friends, people you've worked with or known, you've grown up with. I had all of that in my first campaign when I ran for city clerk, and there's three of us running. I won and was clerk for 4 years, and then our longtime Mayor Ron Tendick, who was the mayor previous for 20 years, decided to hang it up. He happened to be my Little League baseball coach years ago, and we had a good rapport, Mayor Tendick and I. He decided not to run, and he came. I remember I was sitting in my office on a Friday afternoon. He's like, "You ready to throw your hat in the ring for my job?" And I'm like, "Oh boy, here we go." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready, but I wish you wouldn't retire. I really like what I'm doing right now. I've learned a lot in 4 years. But yeah, I'll be happy to try to take that on again." Met tough, good candidates in the primary. There were 4 of us running in the primary, and then I got out of the primary because at that time, Jacksonville, Illinois was partisan politics. The state of Illinois obviously is partisan, federal obviously partisan. But at that time, Jacksonville, and still there are a lot of communities inside Illinois and across the United States that are partisan. But I ran as a Republican.
Can I ask what you mean exactly when you say partisan?
It's you declare a party.
Okay.
You're running on a Republican or Democrat or Independent or Libertarian or however. But there were four of us in the Republican Party that had to get out of that primary and then face the longtime alderman Democrat, Larry Evans, who grew up. I grew up right down the street from him, and his kids and I we're all the same age, and we went to elementary school and are our friends today. That kind of gives you a taste of 18,000 cornfield local government. So then I faced him and another gentleman who was at the time, the publisher at our newspaper, local paper, and he ran as independent, and I was able to obtain that, and I've been mayor for 15 years now. And in that time, it's seen a lot of changes in 15 years. I'm personally, I'm 55 years old. My wife, Janisa, is born and raised in Jacksonville. She went through the schools, went to college, everything just like me. We actually met in college. We kind of knew who we each were in high school, but we met, really reconnected in college, and now we've been married for 27 years. Then, my daughter Kaylee's now 25. She's full time work. Thank goodness. Let's just get her out of the house now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm joking. She's a pleasure. We're trying to get her situated in right now in Illinois, and especially in Jacksonville. Housing markets are really tough to obtain a good house, and we're fighting that. And then my son Drew will be a senior in college at the University of Illinois, Springfield, and he majors in business, and he still plays baseball at a high level. So yeah, it's kids going their ways, their friends seeing the growth, having kids, being a mayor, dealing with a lot of different situations. But one of the best ones is going to kids' events, really trying to get active in our youth. I know folks think some of the things I say, I know my kids do think I'm crazy, the old times, so to speak, the no cell phone talk. Well, when I was we didn't have cell phones, I'm sure that gets old for them, but I think it's important that we paint a picture of how it was and how things are now and how good or bad they have it each way, whatever your opinion is. I always I'm always the guy that looks at the glass half full. I'm positive. I think that's a reason why I've been mayor for 15 years. I'm upbeat. I work with everybody. I don't care if it's the richest person on this side of town to the poorest on this side. I'm very even keel, and it's fun. It's fun, but it is difficult. Like a situation last weekend when Jacksonville is rare for having shootings. We had a shooting and someone got murdered, and
Oh God.
we're dealing with that. So
Yeah.
it goes from one thing. I'm at an elementary school giving them a talk about civic responsibility and things, and then you get a phone call from the chief. We have a situation, and that's the part of a mayor. You really have to balance a lot of different things at once, and that's why this job never gets boring.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of pivots you must have to do in a day, or any day, much less the kind of situation you're talking about.
Yeah, it does take you in a lot of different directions. I mean, you can be sailing and having a good day, and then it just turns over. And I've seen a lot of things as mayor that Mayor Tindick taught me a lot. What's to expect. There's a few things he didn't share, and I don't know if it was on purpose or what, but dealing with death and letting a family know of something. Then obviously the COVID pandemic caught everybody off guard. In my tenure, right off the bat, we had a big um, company for Jacksonville size. It's a big company, and they are wanting to relocate. They just got tired of the taxing of the state of Illinois, and they were being courted by, I believe, the state of Mississippi to move their production down there, and we were able to spin that around. And the city's never purchased a building before, and in the tune of $1 million to keep them here and help them. But we saw, definitely the opportunity, and we're glad we did things like that. We were kind of sort of thinking out of the box for us. I mean, Mayor Tindick was a great mayor, kept us in tremendous shape financially, ultra conservative, just really didn't like to spend. And I appreciate that. But there are things that were getting kind of falling through the cracks that we needed to redo, and that's been fun. So that was right off the bat. Then we had a flood of our water plant. Now, I know if people are viewing this a water plant, this is right in the middle of a neighborhood in our city. Okay, they happened to build a man-made lake called Lake Movistar, and 100 years ago, when they built this lake, the fathers decided to, let's put a water plant right next to the lake. Well, there's something called flooding, and we had a 100-year flood event in 2011, which wiped out our water plant. And you'd think, that can't be a big deal, but it was. We were 3 weeks without potable water. I learned on the job really quick on working together with the engineers, with the state of Illinois officials from the EPA, the other governing bodies. Even though that was a tragedy, and everybody was fine. It was just a big flood, and we were without water. But it taught me a lot of lessons. And then there's other things that have popped up through those 15 years. So, yeah, as mayor, at the end of the day, you try to help people. I mean, that's the bottom line with me personally. I mean, if you really say, okay, Andy, what'd you accomplish today? If I can go home and say, hey, you know what? I helped Mrs. Robinson with a problem. She came to me. I wish she would have gone to her neighbor first and talked it out with her neighbor. I'm big on that.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I'm kind of getting off track, but that's kind of, you got to be a good neighbor first. You have to have communication and be a good neighbor, because you can accomplish a lot of problems that you thought, or misinterpretations. It's just like an email or a text. You didn't mean it that way, but they took it that way. And I think by the face-to-face talk and learning, okay, I didn't know you had this going on in your life. Thanks for sharing. But I was able to, I knew the other person. I was able to, many times kind of be the, the guy that kind of heard both sides, the judge, and we, for the most part, everything's worked out. And I think the bottom line is, it's because you took the time to listen and you communicated with them, which is necessary nowadays. And you may not believe it. You may not believe that they're doing a good thing, or you don't agree with it. However, if you just take the time and listen, and I think that goes a long, long way with people.
Yeah. How much has, I guess it seems like it's an unavoidable topic when we talk about dealing with anything, but like, how much has, like, social media changed the way you go about doing your job, if at all?
It absolutely it has. And I'm not a savvy social media guy. I rely on my kids to tell me new tricks on the phones. I don't do the TikTok or the Instagram. I'm Facebook and Twitter or X. I've seen it evolve. I've seen where a lot of folks can really stir it up, and uh, but I've seen it also push information that would have never gotten out. So I've seen the good sides and the bad sides. Many times I get on there and I want to respond so bad because someone might take something out of context, or they just don't know the backstory. And if I could explain that backstory, I think they'd be okay. And a lot of people just aren't. If I gave them $1 million, they'd want 2 million. So you're kind of getting a wide range, but I try to be consistent. I try to be upbeat. Yeah, there'll be times where I've had a long day and I've wanted to push the button, but I never have. I don't like ever. I will never. I think one of the reasons why we have a strong group of city officials and my department heads is because I'm approachable. My door's open. I have an open door policy. Come in, talk with me. If we can't iron it out here, then we'll figure it out. Someone else can help us. A lot of that is good. The media, our local media. I know these gentlemen and ladies, very good people. They've been hard on me. They've been like, oh, I thought they'd be harder. But for the most part, well, actually, I have not ever had 100%. I can say with media, we've always gotten along. I'm approachable. They like that because I'm approachable. If they call or text me after a council meeting, I'll get back on the horn or call and text them back. And if they have follow-ups. So I'm sure a lot of people do that I'm kind of the one-man shop here. I mean, granted, we're 18,000, but we do have, that's a big deal for this area. We're the county seat, like I said. But social media, I've seen the good and the bad, but obviously it's here and it's going to stay. I don't see it going away. And I think if my message is, if a lot of times I'm not a big vocal stump speech guy. I don't like talking in public, but I let my actions speak for that. We've done a lot of good things in Jacksonville, and it's not just me. I'll never say I did. It's we, because I work with great people every day. Have great, hardworking folks in the community that this community steps up on if we have a tragedy or things are going south. This community always seems to respond, and it's resilient. And I think they feel comfortable with me kind of guiding the ship, so to speak.
Mm. So how many employees do you have for the city?
The city of Jacksonville has 180 employees, and that encompasses, obviously public safeties those are the big ones. The fire and the police department. We have the Parks and Lakes department, the streets department, the municipal building and downtown facilities department. We own 2 cemeteries. We have the cemeteries department that handles all that. And we have, of course, inspections. But then I deal with not only those are my department heads and their employees, and then I also consider these my employees, but they're not mine. I work with them, but like our Regional Economic Corporation, Kristen and Brittany down at Convention and Visitors Bureau, and Judy at Jacksonville Main Street, and Lisa out at Jacksonville Chamber of Commerce. We're constantly working together, and we've had a lot, and we get along with our county officials too. We have 3 commissioners that oversee the county. I just oversee the city, but the county folks, and we also have a magical street in the middle of our town. Not in the middle, because we're the 18,000 big boys, so to speak, but we have a village called the Village of South Jacksonville, which is a separate unit of government. It's a road divides it. between Jacksonville and the village, and that's another 4,000 people, and they have a village president and they have village trustees, and just not to the amount of the city. So we all work well together. We we try to help each other every way we can. And I think if you asked any of the folks I just mentioned, I think they would say the same thing. And I think our community would too.
Yeah. One of the things that, as we've seen all the tumult in the media and culturally, socially, is to me, the way I look at what's been happening is not really to blame social media. I think it's kind of like the consequence of us all becoming interconnected is we're now confronted with all these different people with all these different experiences and viewpoints, and we don't have that common reference point, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
and
Exactly.
and I think so. I think to me that in some respect, I wish we could tamp back the idea that, oh my God, the country's coming apart, because I don't believe it is. I think this is the next challenge, but it's not like anybody got worse. It's just all of a sudden now, when you're living in Brooklyn, you can hear about a viewpoint in the middle of Jacksonville, Illinois, in a totally different context, and in that context, an opinion that somebody has might make total sense, but for somebody living in Brooklyn, New York, it might make not make any sense. And
Yeah.
I think that, to me, that's like what I think we all need to do. And I think what I'd say for like our next generation is they need to start having, I'd say, like an agile mind and an agile emotionality to be able to step into the shoes of other people, to really strive to understand that viewpoint before you come down, I think, with like kind of these very kind of unilateral opinions. And I'll say I've been very guilty of that for the longest time, which is why I tried to do this podcast, and I'm sure I still might do that from times, but I'm trying to be a lot more sensitive to that idea. And I think part of it starts with like lack of trust, and like maybe not, if you don't trust people, or if you let yourself be influenced by the media stereotypes that we get, because I think the
Oh,
media is doing what it's always done, which is just it's selling newspapers, selling clicks, and they've got to cherry pick the most egregious, the most extreme examples of anything to get eyeballs. And we're
yeah.
letting ourselves make that the filter to how we judge entire communities or states or regions of the country.
Well, I think your thinking, Michael, is along my thinking as well. You know, yeah, I agree with you on everything. I think for the most part, Jacksonville, people know as mayor, they know me, but they knew me as Andy Ezard, that worked for the state of Illinois, and then they knew me as Andy Ezard, who played high school sports and was active in the community, and then but they started knowing my parents because my parents were both school teachers. So, you know, they had a lot of students over the years. My dad taught for 38 years, and my mom taught for 34 years.
What did they teach?
My dad taught seventh and eighth grade history. He was math a little bit, English here a little bit, but main was social studies and history. And then my mother was an elementary third grade to fifth grade teacher. And so going into it, they knew my dad is from Jacksonville, and he was the big, um, you know, sports guy growing up in the early '50s. That his teams went to the state basketball tournament and things. So, and then he got into coaching, and then he came back home to teach junior high history and coach eighth grade and seventh grade basketball. Mom was from Southern Indiana, around the Evansville area, completely different socioeconomic area, coal mine country. Uh, Her parents ran a grocery store. I remember going to it. Her mom was a school teacher, but her dad was the butcher and the grocery store owner with the butcher shop right in the middle of the store. Everybody saw what the coal miners would come in from lunch hour, and I remember as a little kid, coal miners would come in lunch hour. Grandpa would have a piece of bread and bologna waiting for him, for a nickel.
Wow.
So that's my mom, and her family was in that mode. And then my dad was from here, the basketball star, and then I, go through school, and I was on good teams too, but was never the player as my father. And then my son comes up and my daughter, and they were better players than me. So, it's, but I think that they respected my parents as teachers. I think obviously the name is known, but my dad was a disciplinarian teacher. He was soft, and he's a big teddy bear, and I'm a 6'2", 330-pound guy. I'm a big guy. My dad was more 6'5", 330. I mean, he was a
Wow.
big man. And, all he had to do, he didn't really have to scold me growing up. He'd just have to raise his voice. And that's what I'm still at the counter. And in fact, it happened 2 weeks ago. I was at the counter at the store, and they looked at the clerk looked at my credit card and said, "Ezard, was your dad that mean whatever teacher from?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." I was like, "Yeah, that was dad." And she's like, "I really hated him back then, but boy, you know what? I figured it out now." So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I guess like the reason why I talk about the social media is I feel like it seems that democracy is challenging no matter what. Like in
yeah,
your context, just 19,000 people, where you similar context for everybody, and you have that kind of like shared, even like kind of personal histories. I'm sure it's not easy. So I think when you look at what democracy has to face when you've got either it's statewide or nationwide, you have 330 million people, and surprise,
right.
surprise, they have lots of viewpoints.
Oh, they certainly do, and they can share their viewpoints. And I'm not against free speech, but I really have a problem when they really don't know. They're quick to think something, and it's not the case, and then everybody piles on, and that's very frustrating. We had a fire over the weekend of a historic building in Jacksonville. Mac, we had two colleges in town, actually three: Lincoln Land Community College, Illinois College, which is older than the city. I mean, we're getting ready to go on our 200th birthday of the city next year. But Illinois College has been here from day one, and then the historic structure that was in the fire was McMurray College, which is another liberal arts school across the town. So for our little town, we had three colleges. Well, Mac closed, but the dining hall area was very historic, and there was a fire in there, and there was, of course, the paper leads with it, the radio leads with it, and you can comment. And one person commented that it took an hour for the fire department to get there. It's the city's fault. All that's untrue, but people started piling on that, and then we started getting the causes. We had to run damage control because that's inaccurate, and that's the bad part. But absolutely, even though I'm not savvy on social media and technology, I hired a new assistant. My longtime assistant retired, and I hired a new assistant that was younger and that is savvy, and she's actually pushed that for the city, and it's been a big help. And the younger it seems that we hire, they're more savvy on that, and I guess I should become that. But that's why we create jobs for young people to help us with this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I guess, but see, and that seems to me that's where I guess like the downside is like you've got any one person can just make some kind of claim, and rumors have always been natural, but now it's like the most eye-catching whatever, because people don't trust. I don't know why I guess I understand why people don't trust, because there have been incidences, or just like
Yes.
if you look at history, and I guess you could, the way I look at it, if you step back and take the 100-year view, is that we World War II, the country was all kind of like we all lined up and we had to fight this really like evil adversary, and then maybe over the next 20 years or so, if people were staying in lockstep, but they started realizing there were institutions that were not really governing maybe with their best interests, or were doing things that people didn't want. So they started questioning them. And I understand the idea of being
Absolutely.
suspicious of government, but I think maybe there's also just a sense of like responsibility to not spread rumors, to not just kind of grab whatever's out there, like, and just be like, oh my God, check this out, because you can get a couple of clicks and get it out there before somebody else does. And that's what seems to be the nefarious incentive part of social media, which then complicates the jobs of government officials.
It does, and often, Michael, I'm in conversation, and I understand the perception of some folks on politicians. I mean, and when I first became mayor, it was hard for me to grasp that I'm a politician now. But and I often said I'm not a politician. Well, I'm sure some people like, yeah, yeah, what's he doing?
Mm-hmm.
And finally I am, I am a politician. I'm in the room and I have friends saying, those dang politicians, and they're like, oh, but not you, Andy. And so it kind of, I get the perception, and I'm sure it's just like in any job and anything that we've done, Michael, in your past and your career, we've all had jobs that there are really good people, there's okay people, and there's just people that just don't really want to do it. And you have to balance that. And you want everyone to succeed. Number one, you don't want to force the hand and things, because you know that they have a family to feed. You want them to be socially minded in the community and thrive. But sometimes you have to make those tough decisions, and that was a hard one for me when I first began. It still is really hard. I don't like disciplining people. I'd rather just call them in and have a sit down, and that's it. Usually, and 9 times out of 10, that's all it needs. And I think people like that type of governing. I'm not trying to enter a room and show everyone up. You know, I don't dress like a mayor. I get knocked on that.
What are you dressed
I'm
like,
in a
and what is
collared
the
shirt.
people?
I'm representing my town today, but I don't dress in the suit and tie. And there's folks that don't like that. I will. I mean, if it's at a special event, and if I'm giving a present, yeah, absolutely, I'm going to dress. I mean, but it's just little things, and you hear that, and you're like, when it used to really bother me, and now it doesn't. But you look back, and I'm like, some of the things that used to bother me don't. And now I look at my kids' growth and what you're talking about, social media. They would grasp at whatever and blurt out to Kaylee, would blurt out to Drew or something about this person on social media, and I'd be like, what are you guys saying? What are you guys saying? And I've seen them evolve as well. I stay away from him now, or her now, and all they do is they do get on here just for the whatever the likes and the comments, and we get, and they don't get on there for that purposes, or at least they're telling me they don't. They're not. They just view things because they're starting to. Hey, where am I going to go now? Am I going to stay in Jacksonville? Am I going to branch out? Do I want to move to New York? My daughter's more of a big city girl. My son's more of a hometown homeboy. So, and I know right now, just talking to you, some of my word choice is probably folks that in New York would be like, what's he talking about here? Why is he calling everybody big boy? Or why? That's just a Midwestern thing. I mean, no disrespect. It's just a Midwestern slang. And I think people are like, oh, yeah, he's from the Midwest or wherever.
Well, you
So,
are. Yeah.
yeah, man, that's how we do things here.
Yeah, and hope you. And if my long, I grew up on Long Island, so
Yeah.
sometimes my accent comes out.
Oh,
So
I love it. No, I've always been afraid of New York, and that's on me. Big city. Is it too big for me? I'm comfortable now in Chicago.
Mm.
I travel, drive up there Drove up there many times on business over the years, and I really never gotten out east. I've gone to Cooperstown
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
Hall of Fame, and that was beautiful and wonderful. But I've never that New York. I'm just like, oh, do I do it or not? I have to get over
Well, I'll have to. We'd love to welcome you, and I'm sure Jordy would welcome you to DC if
that.
you haven't been there.
Yeah.
But I think with everything, there's like my wife and I, we went on vacation to, we went out to like Jackson Hole, and we'd never been out there. So in many respects, I was a bit anxious going there because to
Oh,
me, I was just like,
absolutely.
I've never been like out in the middle of nowhere. Like I'm used to having 27,000 people per square mile in my existence.
Right.
So I think for anything, it's almost more like, yeah, of course you should feel a little bit, anxious about going to new context. Anxiety is something that
Absolutely.
raises our senses to be alert to things. It's more just kind of figuring out what's the entry point into that, and like for us, I mean, even like living in New York City, a lot of times we go to new neighborhoods because like my one boy does like travel basketball. So like sometimes you might go to a different, actually both my boys play basketball and they take us to different parts of the city. So
Yeah.
there are different parts of Brooklyn that I've never been to that basketball is the entry point. I think in New York, it's the restaurants are one of the reasons why people explore new neighborhoods because they see in the news, oh, there's this fancy place that's in the middle of Bushwick, and all of a sudden Bushwick becomes hot and people are exploring it. And I think that that's what you need. Like where we live, I live in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is it's the classic brownstone Brooklyn, and if you're here for Halloween, it's like straight out of a movie set. There's just thousands of kids walking the streets trick or treating, and families sitting on their stoops and having beers and glasses of wine and talking, and it's like anything else. But it can definitely be impenetrable. So to me, that's
Yeah.
part of it too, is to understand, like, yeah, it's not for everybody, and it can be a little bit difficult to figure out how you get in.
Right.
But so,
And we have that same. We've noticed one thing through the pandemic, Michael, is we've noticed that folks that lived in the bigger cities are now navigating more towards our area. They want to get out of the big city life, and they feel that some of the things that we've done in Jacksonville have appealed to them. So they're moving here, and then they're working remotely, and so we've tried to hit things to help them along the way, and we even incentivized a package through our economic development corporation and other businesses that have been key players in the community for years, like a that you may have heard of, Reynolds
mhm.
product, Reynolds
Yeah,
wrap,
yep, yep.
Hefty bags, they
Mm,
that's Reynolds, Nestle, any coffee mate you see poured into a cup of coffee and stirred, and that's
mm.
made in Jacksonville. So
Oh wow, all
those are
right.
those are two big drivers in Jacksonville.
Uh-huh.
But they've even gotten on board where we're offering folks to, if they move to Jacksonville and stay here a year, they get a $5,000 break on taxes, and they
Mm,
have a big welcome package of a lot of good, useful items in Jacksonville, free memberships to health clubs,
mhm.
lunch with me, which it could take a while because I'm an eater, but we just want people to be comfortable,
Yeah.
and we've heard it. We've listened to people. We've heard, I just don't know how to fit in there. I just don't know. So we're trying to help in that situation, which I think it's a pretty, obviously we didn't come up with this. We we see what other towns and cities are doing, and we
Mhm.
tweak it to form fit us, and then we go run with it. But I've never been one of those mayors that have. Yeah, do I fight for everything for our city as far as grants and money and things? Absolutely, and we've hit a lot of home runs. But I'm happy for little towns and other towns in the state of Illinois and even in New York that get a grant of 5 million and get to apply it towards a new sewer plant or whatever. I'm happy for those folks. Yeah, would I liked it? Sure, but let them get that, and let their citizens enjoy it, or it helps that community. And that's kind of my mindset, because I sit on a board with other mayors throughout the state of Illinois, and we all bounce ideas and questions off each other. But for the most part, all of us are rooting for each other. We just want to make Illinois better, our towns better, and then all in all, that helps everyone.
Um, there's a number of different things that are percolating in my head, but the
Yeah.
first thing which I want to definitely cover before we, because this is going wonderfully, but also very quickly, is like one, you mentioned like dining. What would be a what would be like a classic dish for Jacksonville, for Southern Illinois, for your area? What would you know?
Yeah. Well, I happen to obviously I just showed my cards earlier, and I'm an eater. I do like going to try new things. I have a wide variety. I don't dislike many foods, so I'm not picky. A standard Midwest meal is I would say just a standard is a big pork chop, American cut we call it, about an inch and a half thick, cooked about medium well, with your salad and your twice baked potato, and some mac and cheese and a vegetable. Now, we're definitely the steak. When sweet corn around this area is up, it's a sweet corn. For about a month and a half, you get your fill of sweet corn. Same with tomatoes. If you want a bigger meal, that a little more upscale, we do have about 3 restaurants I would consider upper scale for Jacksonville, that are one's in the downtown, one's out at a golf course, and one took over for a long time existing restaurant that's old railroad depot. Proud Richard's, Little Stove, and Kay's Creek. But there's a lot of little other hidden gems. There's, tavern restaurants, Mulligan's. But there, I would think around this area, the big one that was invented in Springfield, just 30 miles away, but it kind of is regional, is something called a horseshoe. And I think folks would, if they ever get the chance to come around anywhere around this area and get a horseshoe, they need to do that. Basically, it is 2 pieces of toast, or a lot of times restaurants will use Texas toast, the thicker sliced toast. Lay it out. If you only want one piece of bread and one meat, it's called a pony shoe. So you got a horseshoe and a pony shoe, and you can get it with a hamburger or hamburgers. You can get it with ham, chicken, buffalo chicken, you name it. I've seen a lot of different combinations, and then you stack it with your French fries, and you pour cheese sauce all over the top. And yeah, it's something so simple. Yeah,
I just lost an artery just hearing
yeah,
that.
I know. You do get your protein in that hamburger, though, or
Wow.
whatever you choose. But it's it's I would say, out of the restaurants in Springfield, 80% of them serve a horseshoe.
Horseshoe. Okay.
And if you get a little bit further out, like if you go up to Champaign, Illinois, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from Springfield, where the University of Illinois is, a big school, they don't do horseshoes. So it's really compact to Springfield, which Jacksonville just lies around enough of that area where we have horseshoes and pony shoes. And then the other big one is a beat, like that. Take that pork chop, beat it down into a big tenderloin, and you have these pork tenderloins that are about this big with a bun about this big, and you can get like 3 sandwiches out of them. That's another big.
Wow.
So yeah, I would like to see how I led with the corn and the tomatoes, the vegetables, and then got into the nitty gritty. But
yeah,
but that's big. Barbecue. We love barbecue. I'm a grill guy. I grill in the summer, probably 5 out of 7 nights. I'm starting to get into that Blackstone griddle thing a little bit. I'm just more of a charcoal propane when I don't have time. I smoke some stuff once in a while when I have the time on a Saturday or Sunday. So, we're versed on food. We're not, we feel we have a pretty good food scene. Maybe it's not as upscale, but I think it would hold its own.
Is there a local like soda or beer?
Well, we do have a distributorship in Jacksonville, which is Budweiser, which is Golden Eagle Distributing, which is Budweiser products, and we have a big distributor in Springfield, which is the Coors Light, Miller Lite. Okay, but absolutely, we have microbrews popping up all over, and we have one in our downtown, which is called the Springfield Brewing Company, it's made in Springfield, but they have a place in Jacksonville too. And then, so we have a winery out to the east of town that gets a lot of traction, a lot of different wineries around the country, around the county that you can go into and listen to a concert. Dannenberger's right down the road. It's called Dannenberger's Winery. It's in New Berlin, Illinois, which is 15 miles down the road, and it's out in the country. It's a winery, and then they have a very nice amphitheater outside, and they bring in entertainment, and you pay a little bit, and so we take advantage of definitely that as fun. We're close enough to go to St. Louis for a bigger show, or some of the a lot of the artists are starting smaller venues, the ones that my kids say the has-beens, because mom and dad are getting into liking going. We saw John Cougar Mellencamp about a month and a half ago, and that was a really good show. That was just right over in Springfield at a very elegant setting at UIS Amphitheater, which is indoor. And then last Saturday night, we went up to a little town called Decatur, Illinois, which is not really little, but it's about 100,000 town, and sat on Lake Decatur of an amphitheater right on the lake with the boats going by. Decatur is a really nice amphitheater and a very good park system. And a lot of that is because Warren Buffett has relations there, and there's a lot of Buffett money in Decatur, and he built this very nice amphitheater. And our genre of music that night was, I get made fun of, but I graduated in '87, so we saw Men Without Hats, Naked Eyes, the Motels, and Wang Chung.
I remember those. I graduated in '89, so you're talking my language.
My wife graduated in '89 too, so that was a thrill. It was fun night. So there's a lot of good things, fun things to do. I mean, I've been drinking my water, and I'm a Cardinal fan. St. Louis, from my living room to if I get a seat in Busch Stadium, is an hour and a half away. It's not too bad.
Well, I'm a Mets fan, so we're not going to have to. We can't talk about the. No, I'm kidding. Broke my heart in 2006.
I know. Yeah, good times though. But yeah, we do have a good food scene. I do actually have good friends that live in New York City that they love coming back here for that.
Yeah.
We talked about it earlier, me kind of getting over that I need to come out. I need to come out there. I already have it set up. They're going to take care of me. I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I guess I'm anxious.
Well, I grew up, like I said, grew up on Long Island, and my family never really traveled. And then when I was in the Navy, all of a sudden, as a midshipman, they were taking me. I had to go to like England and Spain, and then I was as Jordy, I was stationed in Japan. So you just kind of get thrust into these situations where you're like, okay, I'm in Hong Kong, and I've got to go figure it out. And then I think once you do that, it becomes like if I wasn't comfortable traveling or couldn't get over the hump, then the Navy I didn't get anything out of the Navy, but I did, and I'm grateful for that. But it's still, I think anything new, you should be a little hesitant. I think for me, the big thing, and again, I plead guilty to it, but I think that the best I would want for somebody, you could come to New York, see the good, and see that you don't have to love it, you don't have to want to live here. But just like if somebody comes to Jacksonville, you don't have to want to live in Jacksonville, but you should try to evaluate things not from a negative standpoint, but from a positive standpoint. I might not want to live here, but I love what you do here, and here, and I'm going to go back to New York, and I love New York. That's fine.
And that, you hit it on the head again, Michael. That's what we want. We want good experiences.
Yeah.
We want people to be friendly when they come to Jacksonville. We want to
Yeah.
put our best foot forward. You know, we just chose not to live in any
Yeah.
place else, and that's cool. That's great. I hope every one of my friends and people are happy where they live. I want them to be happy, and back to Jordy, I always knew Jordy was going to get away. Kind of, he
Uh-huh.
was just a little bit. He was a good guy, smart. His sister Jillian, brilliant, and his parents are still here, and I'm the one that keeps an eye on his parents now,
Uh-huh.
in a sense,
Uh-huh.
because I think they feel secure that with Jacksonville,
Yeah.
and that's good.
Yeah.
Good
We
thing.
the And and I guess there's also I think something about when you travel, and I think this is where like technology is good and internet is good. Is I think that in the past, like if you were traveling, the only place you would know to travel are the ones that had good advertising, that the ones that had good tourist bureaus, and I find that now, and I'm sure I know there are downsides like Airbnb, but I think that you're more able to kind of like go to different parts of the country, and I think with information available, like even with this podcast, like more people are going to learn about Jacksonville and Illinois than ever
Right.
heard about it before. And it's not going to be earth shattering. It might not change anything, but I think that there's good things here that are happening with technology, which is just that ability to kind of
Absolutely.
learn about other areas. And now, you can market to people to come to Jacksonville, Illinois, and come to
Yeah.
small town America, not in like in a pejorative sense or in a like stereotypical sense, but like come here, enjoy this, go back to where you're from. That's fine. You know, I don't know.
I agree. I mean, tourism is such a. I mean, we rely on our tourism here. We really do well. I mean, if you're into the Lincoln sites,
Yeah.
Springfield is right down the road. Jacksonville, Abraham Lincoln spent a lot of time in Jacksonville too, and there's areas in Jacksonville that is a tour that they can go on.
Really?
So we have a lot of history in Jacksonville, and a lot of people are lured to Jacksonville, but we need the amenities, we need the infrastructure, everything to go along with that, so people stay as pleasant.
Yeah.
Our parks need to be clean. Recreation's important. They need opportunities if they golf, if they run, if they want to walk a trail, if they want to bike. That's government always has to think, how can we accomplish this, but still get your potholes filled when you turn on the tap, get the water to pour out. So it's a you can't do it by yourself. You have to have good people, and I think that with our values, the team in place in Jacksonville and the community, we're really on the uptick. I really feel.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you first. What would be your ideal day? A day off, so you're not working. What would be your ideal day on the weekend?
Okay, ideal day. Um, Wake up early, coffee on the deck, just reading through, I guess, the phone now. I'm still a newspaper guy. A guy like flipping, feel the paper in my hand. I'm kind of that way because I grew up in a house where my dad got 4 newspapers, but yeah, I get 2. But then I will take the dogs for a walk and then travel somewhere. Hopefully, it's a home tournament for my son that plays ball, and go out and watch him compete at a high level, and watch his friends and visit with families, and welcome him to the community. We have a nice baseball facility with 6 ballparks, and we have a lot of people around this region, and not just the state of Illinois, but a lot of states around ours. So go out there, watch a game, go home, eat lunch, go back to the backyard, chill out by the swimming pool, take a nap, get up, either grill out later that evening, have some friends over if we feel like it. If not, we just hang out. And like I said, I like music. I'm always the GBL party box is always around with a little music coming out. I have an older brother that's 9.5 years older than me, so I grew up with his music, which was mid '70s. So I have a wide range, and then now I have kids, and I catch myself listening to some of their music, and that's kind of my day. I'm really laid back. Um, if it's another type, if I have an event like on a Friday night, if it's a downtown concert at our beautiful redone square, I'll run down there and listen to the band, whoever's playing. We have a concert series every Friday night in the summer. Cold beer, food trucks. It's a real good destination. It's a lot of fun, laid back atmosphere. If you can go to one of the restaurants or bars right on the square and just visit. And if I'm traveling, I like traveling with my wife to see ball games, but we've never done the travel without the ball games. So we're now starting to enter into a new phase in our life where it's just we're not just going for a ball game now. So
For your son, you mean?
yeah, for my son.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
now my wife and I are going to expand and kind of see where we go. But
Well,
yeah,
maybe that's your entree for coming to New York City, is to come see the Cardinals play the Mets.
that would be wonderful.
City Field is
Love
nice.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
You just got to get the Mets going.
I'm a
I mean,
long-suffering Mets fan, so
I know. Yeah, we actually have friends that are New York fans, and they traveled to, or Yankee fans, I'm sorry. They traveled to Kansas City last night to watch the Royals and the Yankees. So
yeah. Actually, more fun is the Coney Island Cyclones, which is the Mets single A affiliate, which is on the water. You can watch a game, and you've got the roller coaster in the background. You've got the New York Harbor in the background, and it's actually really it's beautiful. We don't get there enough, but it's a great run probably.
This prompts me.
Definitely. But yeah, check that out. And I'm happy to be a tour. I sell, my full-time job is working in wine and spirits distribution. So I'm very familiar with the restaurants and the bars. And I've lived here for 27 years. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that's a good, I have friends in that field.
Oh, you do?
They love it, and they do very well. And one just got a big promotion down in Dallas. And
nice. Yeah.
He was in Jordy and I's class too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not a bad way to make a living.
No.
And then we were touching upon tourism as well. So what would be, if I were to come to Jacksonville, Illinois, how would you script that day or that weekend or whatever?
Well, the weekend one, absolutely, I would hook you up with Brittany, who is our Convention and Visitors Bureau. She's the great, she handles groups or individuals. She's wonderful as far as really getting into the history part. She'll run you over to kind of give you a taste of Jacksonville. Right across the street from her office is a Jacksonville museum. Our museum board took the old old post office and transformed it into a museum, a Jacksonville museum. So just to kind of get a taste, you don't have to spend a whole lot of time, and then we travel down State Street and go over and see Governor Duncan's mansion, who was a former governor back in the 1800s in Illinois, where his mansion was. And then the historic Lincoln sites of Illinois. And part of that is Illinois College. And that would take up a lot. And then we do have a very good they really hit a home run as far as education on the Underground Railroad and the Civil War. And we have housing throughout Jacksonville that were Underground Railroad houses. And now it's federally recognized as the Freedom Corridor, and the city of Jacksonville is part of that Freedom Corridor, where the slaves would come in and get protected and hit out till everything was fine. But that'd take up a lot of the day. And then go to Blessings on State for your bed and breakfast where you're staying, and have a nice dinner there right on their patio porch overlooking Jacksonville historic area, and then maybe venture up after dinner later if it's a Thursday night to a local watering hole called Don's Place, that's been around for a long time. And Thursday night they have crab races. So you take a hermit crab. They have hermit crabs. Um, it's home of the crab races, Don's Place. You have hermit crabs that live in their little bin all week long under heat lights and protected. And then you purchase a crab for $1, and you can get, if you want to raise 5 crabs, if you can keep track of when you're supposed to be over at the table where they set them on, and then they bunch them up on a table, and then they put a cone over it, and then they lift the cone, and then the crabs go out to a circle, and the first one to hit that outer circle is the winner, and they just play it just like a regular tournament, and it's pretty entertaining. I mean, we've had a lot of different type of folks come into this town wanting to know, where can I find those crab races? And so the word's kind of getting out. And again, like I've mentioned my kids several times, but now the word is really getting out because the owners of Don's, the former owners, Danny and Caroline Kindred, sold their to their daughter Rachel and her husband Chris, who happens to be a Jacksonville firefighter, and their longtime partner Jim Ash, who, again, small town, went to school with Jordy and I and everybody. They own the bar, and Rachel's really good at marketing. I mean, that she's really pushing, again, what we talked about, the social media, and now she's getting people from everywhere coming in on a Thursday night. Now, some of the locals might not be happy about that, but as a mayor, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come. It's not crazy. It's not like diners, drive-ins, and dives where when Guy comes on, you're going to get swamped. It's not like that, but she's having an effect, and that'll last a while, those crab races, and then that's a good day in Jacksonville, I would think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a TikTok account that you guys need to open up, as the hermit crab races. Are they
Oh,
local hermit crabs?
well, I don't know where they get the hermit crabs.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I'm sure at the pet store in Springfield, I'm guessing.
Okay.
But it is fun because they sell T-shirts.
Uh-huh.
If you want to race the hermit crabs, or the winner gets a T-shirt.
Uh-huh.
And it's, if you want to just watch out, you just get your crab in a little container, and he hangs out with you for the night. So if you go into the tavern alone, you do have a friend. If you
Now, are these thoroughbreds, or like, what are we? These Atlantic, are they Pacific, Gulf of Mexico, Hudson Bay?
Good questions. I might have to research that and bring in a ringer for the future.
I think the way to go, I mean, this is just thinking about a wine person who thinking like a wine person likes to geek out, is you want to go down to like absurd levels of specificity here. Like, the pedigree, I want to know their workout regimen,
I have friends that are just like you. Yeah.
Are we testing for PEDs here? Like, there's who the trainers are.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds right there. I think that's enough right there to lure anybody to Jacksonville.
Absolutely.
The crab races.
Home of the crab races. I guess that could be it.
Wow. Well, thank you for that tour.
Yeah.
And just kind of one last thing is, where does the name come from? Obviously, it's not Jacksonville, Florida. Is there a different Jackson that kind of settled there that the town is named after?
There were 2 theories on that, but it ends up being President Andrew Jackson.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of folks that thought it might be a we have one of the oldest Southern Baptist Black churches in Jacksonville, and there was a gentleman named Mr. Jackson in that church, but I don't think it dates back as far as 1825. So
okay. Oh, wow.
And you know what? If people want to think it's named after that fine man, that's fine with me.
Right. Okay.
What we have a good community. We're just, we're putting things together like everybody else, but we're figuring things out, and we're not in it alone.
Yeah. That's great. All right. Well, we're just exceeding the hour point, so we should probably let you go take care of your mayoral duties. But thank you so much for joining me today. One last thing is, can I ask, like, what gives you hope at the end of the day?
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, as mayor, you can say things for your town, obviously. Just, I think what gives me hope is dealing with these younger generations. Just, you got to wake up, go to work hard, don't get caught up in the fray, and just try to be happy. Don't worry about things you can't control. That's what gives me hope.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Andy, for doing this. I really appreciate
Yeah, enjoyed
being
it.
open to this. It's been a lot of fun, and I've
Thank you.
certainly learned a lot about Jacksonville,
Thank you, Michael.
Illinois. So, and thank you to all the listeners and viewers out there. May you go out and explore our country with curiosity, respect, compassion, and humility. All right. Thanks so much. We'll take care. And I'll look forward to having you in New York.
Can't wait.
All right. Bye.